And we're live. Hi, it's Tatsu live, coming to you a second time from Real Progressives. Today, I decided that I'd answer a couple of comments from yesterday's live feed. Juan says, we need to build a real progressive party, not the sold-out Democratic Party. In this talk, Juan, I think I've come to a slightly different conclusion in that, and that's the last part of this talk, how progressive can leverage political chaos. And I believe we can use elements of the Berniecrats, the Democrats, and even some of the GOP lawmakers to influence change that we want. Mindy says, if the GOP was smart, they'd adopt Bernie's single-payer plan. And yeah, that's a good suggestion, you know. I think it kind of ties in with what Juan is saying, in that we don't know exactly how these, the two parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, are going to pivot once Trump takes office. So some unknown unknowns, or some known unknowns, but again, it's an opportunity for us as progressives to leverage this chaos, this creative chaos. Kathryn, I'd rather reach out to non-racist Trump supporters than Hillary supporters personally. And that's a sentiment I fully endorse. And if we don't take the opportunity to reach out to the disaffected voters who did vote Trump in, then our movement is kind of at a loss. We can't do this alone, right? We really have to band together with multiple elements to build a coalition, narrow down on the few key issues that we can agree upon, avoid the trap of identity politics, and go for the change that we can reasonably achieve. So, with that being said, I'm going to move into the first part of this talk, which is titled The Slow Second Awakening of the American Liberal. Now, there's still a lot of recriminations going around. Bernie would have beaten Trump. I have actually something a little more controversial to say, in that I personally believe Barack Obama could have lost to Trump. And how is that possible? Just look at the results from this year. Would have Obama won the Rust Belt? Would he have won in Michigan? Would he have won in Pennsylvania or Wisconsin? And hey, Mindy, actually mentioned your comment at the beginning of this cast, so check that out on the rewind. Now, so if you and I've said this before in previous broadcasts, where I believe that Donald Trump would have not only lost to Clinton, and I said this in May, he would have lost, Obama would have lost to Trump, okay? So this tells you right off the bat that this election is not about sexism or racism or any kind of isms. It's about the disaffected Trump voter, and those people do not have jobs, do not have a future. And I think how it relates to what I'm calling the second awakening of the American liberal is that these people who are out in the streets protesting, I don't think they're rioting. I think that's inspired by another insidious underground false flag type of thing called George Soros, but we'll get to that a little later. What I'm seeing is amongst my liberal friends is that they're just starting to explore all the articles that we've read, right? I know why white, poor rural people chant Trump, Trump, Trump. Articles like that. They're just reading that for the first time. So they're starting to do their research on the Midwest and people in the middle of the country, getting to know the culture a little bit. Hopefully they're expanding their horizons of their stereotypes of Trump voters. Okay, so that's the good news, right? The good news being that your everyday liberal, they're getting, at least they're posting memes that are intersectional. Hello, I have a guest, special guest. Hope he doesn't knock over the tripod. Intersectional in nature, right? They're saying things like Donald Trump, electing Donald Trump is electing racism, sexism, being against people of color, gays, lesbians, all that stuff. So they're collecting all the isms and pinning it on Donald Trump. So it's a slight move in the right direction. They are getting the intersectional part, which I think, if you, I declare myself an intersectional feminist. I do see the connections between feminism and other struggles of people of color, and other issues of the day, other isms. But again, it's the baby step before you can connect the cause of all these isms to the greater power structure that is corporate greed. So we can start pushing the conversation to that. We can start saying to our liberal friends, "Hey, I'm glad you're getting it. Like, I'm with you. I'm going to be there, just like Bernie Sanders is, to defend our LGBT community. We're going to defend equal pay for women. We're going to fight for that. We're going to do all these things together. But we also need to attack the root cause of these issues, and that's Wall Street. That's the oil companies. That's capitalism itself, to a certain extent, or unfettered capitalism. So, and I think Mitt Romney had an interesting statement that he said Trump will change America with trickle-down racism. And my rebuttal to that is, no, the elite has changed America with trickle-down politics. So for over the course of 4 decades, we've been fed party platforms by the Democrats and the Republicans, and they stood on wedge issues, right? They stood on the Democrats being the party of minorities, Republicans being the party of conservative values, and we see now that this is all just a scam. It's a lie, just to capture your vote. And they artfully weave these cultural hot button issues into how we should govern our economy and politics. So Mitt Romney is wrong. He's a disaffected GOP person. I don't know if you can even consider him an elite anymore. I mean, he is elite financially, but he's out of power, so he's not a political elite at this point. So just like Democrats, the Republicans have the wrong analysis. And it's funny. So I don't know if we can bring that up as a catchphrase, trickle-down politics. We had trickle-down economics. Mitt Romney says we have trickle-down racism. But what we really have now is trickle-down politics. Okay? So updates on the anti-Trump rallies and NoDAPL. As pointed out in the comment sections on my feed yesterday, a 12-foot perimeter high fence was built. Events are climaxing or already a catastrophe. I'm not really sure. Please see our videos here on RP. There's Ed Higgins was out there today broadcasting, and there's a lot of other sources for video too. You can go to your various groups that you have been participating in all this year, and catch the action. So bear witness to it. Post it into your own page, and keep that struggle alive. And if we lose, we lose. But we're not going to let this one go easy, right? So let's see. I'm going to check out some of the comments here. Another one, sexually assaulted a young girl on a bus. Hero black man stopped his assault and was arrested too. Yeah, I really can't keep up with all the street action, so to speak, on the ground at these anti-Trump rallies or protests. But it's we're gonna get into a little bit about what's really going on there. So the next section of my talk today is positioning Democrats, Republicans, and Trump. And that's kind of an odd phrasing. I say positioning the Democrats, Republicans, and Trump. When you would think that I should say, how are the Democrats, Republicans, and Trump positioning ourselves? Well, it's a two-way street here, and this kind of I'm trying to position it. I'm trying to frame it in the way that we can position them. It's not necessarily that trickle-down politics is the reality. The reality is Donald Trump upset the whole apple cart, and they're scrambling to put him back in the cart and run away. So we can't let them do that. So let's see what's going on with the parties. So the GOP is finding funds for the wall. Representative Louis Gohmert. It's amazing what you can get Congress to do when you lead and push them in the right direction. So, independent of Donald Trump, they're trying to fund the wall by themselves, thinking that they're taking Donald Trump's mandate, as it were, and getting the job done as they see it. Another GOP initiative, and I mentioned this yesterday, Mitch McConnell says he only wants to repeal Obamacare, and him being the leader of the Senate Republicans, he's saying this is the only thing on the table. Yet today, Louis Gohmert is trying to fund the wall. So what you see is a bit of disarray within the Republican Party. They don't know what they stand for. They don't even, they're probably questioning their platform at the moment. They're trying to get in with Trump, and Trump is rapidly leaving him in the dust. He's not, the GOP can't catch up. And what we see, I'm going to skip the anti-Trump rallies here for a sec. Trump on Syria, and these next few bullet points here are courtesy of my friend Maggie, who has some wonderful posts on her wall. She's kind of captioned them, hopeful, signs for hope or something of that kind. We have Donald Trump on Syria. Very interesting. He's signaling that he's going to support Assad, side with the Russians, and remove rebel backing, and strictly just go after ISIS. So, that's a, I don't know. For personally speaking, that's a beautiful thing. It's obviously right. From the very beginning of the conflict 5 years ago, to 2 years in 2013 and 2014, I wasn't extremely versed on the subject, but I did some research, and it was obvious. Assad gets a pass. Even if he was guilty of the war crimes that the Obama administration accused him of, he gets a pass. He wasn't guilty of those, It's very, you can't prove, these claims of him killing civilians and the like. And the fact is that the U.S. is more guilty of destroying civilian infrastructure and lives than probably Syria is at this point. So you can see horrific videos of a city called Manbij, so Manbij, J, but it's pronounced Bej, so Manbij. And I might decide to post that into RP at some point. Horrific footage, but I think something, again, we need to bear witness to. So, Trump on student aid. This is Trump has just laid out a pretty radical student debt plan. And I briefly skimmed it. It's from the Washington Post, of all places. And this is actually back in October. So, we're not, while Democrats, liberals are fighting about isms, and we were busy digging up dirt on Hillary. The issues got completely ignored by all of us, right? And here's a serious policy statement from Donald Trump. He wants to cap repayments at 12.5% of a student graduate's revenue, right? And he says, if they want to pay it back early, they can pay it back early and go on with their lives. So this is it's not, completely tuition-free college, but this is actually kind of a compromise position that could get passed through Senate or and Congress, right? So that's kind of amazing, and I'm shocked that I did not see that myself. Thanks again to Maggie for posting that on her wall. Trump on LGBT rights, and during the campaign, this did make some media waves. He doesn't care, who uses what bathroom, and he held up a rainbow flag at one point last month. He secretly doesn't care. I mean, and this is not LGBT stuff. It doesn't really affect the elite, right? They don't care. It doesn't affect their bottom line, which is money. And the only ones who are against it, again, are the cultural, GOP supporter, the base, who have, religious, hey Ellen, religious attitudes on what it is to be LGBT. So, all right, Trump on saving parts of Obamacare. He's walking that back. And then going on to the Democrats, it's obvious that Bernie Sanders is going to be the leader of the Democratic Party, whether he gets a leadership position or not. He's, I mean, we all have a debt of gratitude to Bernie Sanders, but at the end of the day, he's a politician. And he played as a politician, he played his cards very well. He's the only one left standing. Hillary Clinton doesn't have an ounce of political weight, and Bernie Sanders is the one who's gonna be the resistance in Senate and Congress. So he's got the Democratic mandate at this point. Now, so that's where the Democrats, the Republicans, and Trump are positioning themselves. Let's move on to how progressives can leverage this political chaos. Now, there's different constituencies that we need to address here. We can push liberals to have their second awakening, trying to pull the thread of intersectionality politics. So we connect first an individual's core identity politics issue, connect that with other issues. If you're a feminist, if you believe in equal pay, you can connect that to BLM, you can connect that to immigration, and then And then when they're ready, when they're fired up about that, you can have them talk about a deeper discussion about what it is that is the cause of all this, including climate change, right? And we know, I keep saying it over and over, and I'm sorry to keep repeating myself, but climate change is not caused in a vacuum. It's not caused by, who put, the CO2 in the air. And, yes, we're all guilty, but it's capitalism and corporations pushing this age of consumerism and overconsumption that pumped all this stuff into the air. So it's corporate greed again. We can also encourage their efforts to work on their single issue identity politics, whatever it may be. We're not just thought leaders. We have to be, I hate to be corny and say strategic, but we do need to have, suggestions that give people hope. I was trying to console a Clinton supporter who I actually don't talk to very much, and I'm going to present this in more depth at a later time. I presented the idea of, the Bernie Sanders idea of how to trick your legislator into coming to your own rally. So again, it's just, yeah. So what you do is you rent a high school auditorium or a basketball court or whatever, and you put up flyers everywhere saying, Bernie Sanders is going to come to this high school at this time and this date. And you get, you sign up people on Facebook or whatever. I'm just saying Bernie Sanders, like he was living in my district or something, but put the name of your legislator there. And you promote this for a few weeks. And when 300 people have signed up, then you inform Bernie Sanders. And guess what? Bernie Sanders has no choice but to come. So you've duped your local legislator to hosting a town hall meeting, right? That, and so, a couple of people were really enthused about that, and they want to talk to me tomorrow about how that could work. So we can, okay, I kind of, my second point I just addressed. So, encourage their new politics enthusiasm, and then welcome them into our bigger umbrella, right? Say, yes, we're not exactly the political party of your issue, but we agree with the issue, or we're totally willing to work with you. We have some experience in this field. If you join RP, if you like our page, we have a wonderful director of activism, and I haven't met him yet. I forget. I think it's Peter, and he's live streaming here too. So we've got ideas, we've got the energy, we've got the people to work on what you want to work on. We'll help you, and then, but let's have a bigger goal here, and maybe it's not a third party at this moment. It doesn't really matter, We can leverage Democrats, we can leverage Republicans, we can fight Trump, we can push GOP legislators to support initiatives that Trump is rapidly pivoting on, and I think that's really, this is creative chaos, as they say in the tech industry. I hate to bring up buzzwords like that, but it is. And, out of chaos comes opportunity. So I also say here, and it's getting dark and losing light, but we can work with Bernie Sanders types of politics, and, let's not confine ourselves. I'm talking to you, and I'm talking to us as progressives. Let's not confine ourselves to party and policy. Let's work on issues, right? And let's find let's find the mechanisms in which we can do that. We can pressure our local districts and elected officials to at least come out and publicly have statements on it, right? If not, vote the right way. So, how about removing parties from voter? Yeah, I like that's a radical idea. It's about as radical as abolishing the Electoral College, something I don't think is wise. And there's a lot of arguments against the abolishing it, and obviously it's a reaction to Clinton winning the popular vote. But even if the proponents of Electoral College are right, if we were just to yank it, there could be all kinds of unintended consequences. So when it comes to political parties and elections, you have to be extremely careful. And I think at first you have to correct or improve the current system and see how it works. Voter fraud, election fraud, rigging, cheating, gerrymandering, those issues need to be addressed first, okay? Because popular vote, electoral college vote doesn't mean anything if we don't have integrity in our elections. So, and some of the people out there do get that, but yes. So, hey Maggie, I just wanted to say that I've borrowed from some of your posts on your page towards the beginning of this talk, and I really appreciate your friendship and doing some research. So I'm grateful for that. Now, so we can force Democratic lawmakers to be more progressive, and in solidarity with the still crestfallen Hillary voter, we can force GOP lawmakers to denounce isms, to denounce, and that might work for a GOP lawmaker, right? Who hasn't yet, the GOP lawmaker who hasn't endorsed Donald Trump in the season. I agree. Donald Trump needs to walk back some of the statements of the campaign, and so this would be their opportunity as a GOP lawmaker to get a dig in on Trump, and show themselves to be independent of the independent guy. But so, and also it's an opportunity to highlight the Midwest conservatives, people who live in the middle of the country, the elected officials of these districts, that they should be taking a stand for their constituents. They should be out there saying, hey, our state, our districts, our people, we're not racists, we're not sexist. We're talking, the reason why we elected Donald Trump is because we want to change. We don't know what that looks like. All we know is we're suffering. And, if you can't relate to that, I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. It's not about sexism. It's not about racism. You see examples of that in the media, but as we know, they cherry pick what they like to broadcast and what they don't. So, and that includes things like the anti-Trump rallies. And I haven't discussed it. I skipped over it, where there's a Zero Hedge article, Clinton and Soros launched America's Purple Revolution. And what that means, the Purple Revolution is an allusion to Clinton's a dress or costume, whatever you want to call it, on the day after losing the election. Now, the Purple Revolution is an allusion to the colored revolutions of the Middle East. I'm thinking, and also some of the Soviet blocs. So they all had colors. They all had, like, the Green Revolution in Iran, which failed. We had the Rose Revolution in Georgia. We had the pink, the Tulip Revolution and Uzbekistan. I mean, there's so many of them, and most of them have turned out to be basically false flag operations funded by Soros, Western states, Western actors inciting violence. I mean, we saw that in Libya. Clinton herself was responsible for inciting the violence that did eventually climax in the destruction of Benghazi, the Benghazi embassy. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but the GOP people are right. I can't believe it myself that, that it's true, but it is. So I'm finishing up here. Thanks for hanging out. It's getting late, and I'm probably going on a little bit too long. But I just want to reinforce the message that we as progressives can parlay what is happening, this chaos, this disillusionment, to the advantage of everyone. We can be a unifying force for Democrats, for Greens, for Burners, even these disaffected Trump people that we don't know yet. I'm hoping to. I have a few Trump fans and voters in my feed. Actually, I made them during the election because I was so strongly anti-Hillary that we had this common mission, if you will, together. Signal troubles on my end. Sorry. So that's the way forward, as the way I see it. We can work with Donald Trump's quick pivots. I don't think we should necessarily be cheerleading those efforts. However, we can, point this out as an opportunity to liberals. It's like, look, he wants to save parts of Obamacare. What do you think about that? Should we pressure our Democratic lawmaker to, reach across the aisle, so to speak? Should if you live in a red state, should we influence? Should we have a dialogue with our representative to make him stand with this new proposal from Donald Trump? Absolutely. So, and yeah, so that's the message. We don't have a third party yet. It's going to take a while. So let's work with what we have. All right. It's super dark. I'm freezing. Thanks a lot. And we'll catch you next time.